You got to put your radius to like 500K to find one person.
He said that women were the problem for why he wasn't getting laid. They've invalidated a term that was created by a woman in the first place. Someone DM'd and said, I want romance and intimacy and connection in my life, but my friend dismissed it as not feminist.
Oh my God.
D. Salmon with you and Pete Rasmussen as well.
Thank you so much for tuning in. This is The Hookup. If you've never heard of us before or listened to an episode, we talk about love, sex, dating, and relationships. And we also like to investigate topics that are trending, that are polarizing, and that people are talking about online. And something that we had been seeing a little bit around the place was this term called femcels.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know anything about this, stay tuned because we're kind of going to unpack this terminology and see where it comes from, which you might have inferred comes from incels.
Yeah. You might have heard the episode we did with writer Jack, a facilitator from Tomorrow People, where we unpacked that Netflix show Adolescence and we spoke about the manosphere, spoke about masculinity, and we spoke about incels. We didn't go into it too deeply, and this is something that we want to do in this episode because it's actually been a really huge journey from the origin of the word incel to where we've ended up now.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to unpack how women fit in to the term and also the experience of being involuntarily celibate as well.
Yeah, and this is something we've obviously touched on before in previous episodes, talking about really embracing single life and loving it, you know, fully diving headfirst into boy sober movements, the 4B movement. But we never really touched on the fact that there are a lot of you who really want a partner, like who feel quite unhappy and ashamed at not having a romantic relationship or not having sex. And so I think that's where the blend of femcel and your opinions, which you sent us on our Instagram at Triple J The Hookup, is going to come into this app. So stay tuned. We're going to unpack incels, femcels, and how it relates to you.
So like I said before, we had an episode where we kind of unpacked the show Adolescence. If you haven't listened to that app, that's so fine. But there has been a huge cultural conversation around incels since that has completely blown up. If you have never heard of the term incel, let us break it down for you. So it's basically this online subculture, which is a shortening of the term involuntarily celibate. So, you know, people who aren't having sex, not from their own choice. And it refers to, at the moment, a demographic of typically straight men who claim that society has made them unable to attract, usually a female sexual partner, despite wanting one.
Yeah, and I think when you hear the term incel, because it's gained so much popular culture around it, you'd hear it in movies, TV, you might have even come across like TikToks about it, and you have this kind of weird maybe image in your mind. For me, it's kind of like neckbeard dude who like stays at home and games all day, has no showers, no hygiene, and like is a bit hateful. But the origin of where this came from is so far from that image, that Reddit image that you might have in your brain. It actually came from a woman called Alana who lived in Alaska, and in 1997 she made this website to basically bring all people of all genders and sexualities together to say like, how are we feeling about like not having any relationships and not having sex, like we're struggling with it. She made this website and it's called the Alana's Involuntary Celibacy Project. So basically for anyone who is struggling to find a relationship.
So she did an interview with BBC, which I'm going to read some quotes from. So she described the site as a friendly place, a simple website where she posted articles and ran a mailing list. It became a forum for men and women to talk about being lonely, where they could wonder aloud about why they couldn't meet anyone. So originally Alana abbreviated involuntarily celibate to invicel. So it was like INVCEL. And then someone suggested that incel was easier to say. So then the incel word was used to mean anyone of any gender who was lonely, who never had sex, or who hadn't had a relationship in a long time. What happened was she left the group, right? So she created this incredible space. It was meant to be really uplifting. It was just a place to feel a little less alone in being alone. And she, I think, got a partner, or for whatever reason, she was like, I've done my journey.
I'm no longer
I'm out.
incel,
Like,
yeah.
have fun. She didn't like identify as an incel anymore, and she left the group to just run on its own. And this is where like it just got a bit out of hand.
Yeah.
But I think the it was obviously a group for everyone of all genders or whatever. But I think the real key moment where it started becoming this term identifying with that type of like angry man in the basement was when Elliot Rodger killed 6 people in California in 2014. So if you aren't familiar with this situation, I personally remember it happening, and I remember just being like,
Really?
oh yeah, I think I posted about it on my MySpace or my Facebook page.
Wow.
And like little feminist D.
Yeah, I was like activism from like the get-go.
Yeah, I remember posting about it on
Wow.
my Facebook page and getting in a full-on fight with this boy from my school over it because anyway, he took it as like he got defensive as a man.
As
blah,
an
blah, blah,
attack.
blah.
Yeah.
But what happened with this Elliot Rodger case was basically he had become radicalized as an incel, and through pockets of the community, which became, I guess, what we would now call the manosphere, he purposely killed 6 people and then in himself. And what came out of that was actually a manifesto where basically he said that like women were the problem for why he wasn't getting laid.
Yeah. And that is like a common theme, I guess, with the incel culture. So from that like historical moment, there were a bunch of other atrocities that have been committed throughout history past that point where people were like, yeah, I could identify as an incel. And so then it started to just like gain traction as this.
Well, he was celebrated. He was celebrated by other incels or men on the internet who were like, hell yeah. Like
we love to see the violence.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, fight against society. Because that's the thing with incels, right? Like their whole thing is that they hate what society deems them, and they never look inward and think it's a me problem. It's always like an outward expression of like, no, I'm not the problem, you are. And like I'm being like disadvantaged or discriminated against because of XYZ. And that's their like general kind of format of how they operate, at least back, you know, when incel was in its height. Yeah.
Yeah. And they had terms for things, right? So like Pip said, the attitude was really like, women are the problem. So women were called Stacys, hated women. Stacys were women. Feminists hated them. They also hated Chads and had a lot of anger towards these guys who basically were rewarded in their eyes for being more attractive or like tall or like successful or charismatic
money,
or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they hated Chads as well.
Yeah. And in 2017, like Reddit, which is where they kind of lived, right? They had like a couple of like subreddits that were going really hard. One of which was like 41,000 members at the time, had to get shut down because of the community guidelines just getting broken because they were just being hateful, spouting a lot of hate, like, you know, misusing free will and their free speech. And yeah, Reddit had to shut it down. So their Reddit got shut down. They dispersed. There are still obviously communities around in dark corners of the web. They're probably on 4chan or something, but I wasn't about to go and find that. Because
I will only do a certain amount of research, and that does not involve.
That's where I draw the line. No. I mean, I probably could have, but it would have just led me to a place that I already kind of knew what I was going to find and what I was expecting already. But I did find a really interesting Reddit thread from a couple of years ago, and it was like from Ask Reddit, which is like one of the biggest threads. And they were like, someone had asked a question that was, former incels, how do you feel about reflecting on your time as an incel, or if you identified as?
And now they don't.
Yeah, and now they had turned. They were basically like, I don't identify with that anymore. But like someone was asking, when you reflect on that past self, what did you think? And there were some really interesting answers on this. So someone here saying, I didn't identify as an incel, but looking back, I think I adopted a lot of those beliefs and tenets. I thought women only wanted handsome men or men with charm and confidence. I really liked playing games like World of Warcraft. I spent a lot of time hanging out online, laughing at shitty websites and shittier people. And I think that made me feel better about myself and superior to others, despite putting in absolutely zero effort into exercise or improving my body. It was easier to belittle people on the internet. And underneath it all, I despised myself and my ineptness. And that kept me single for most of my 20s.
Interesting.
Yeah, a lot of other people, there's like heaps of like threads of people replying to this being like, you know, looking back, I definitely noticed there were women interested in me, but I didn't know how to pursue it. I was really terrified at the thought of confrontation or looking stupid if I was like rejected. So a lot of that as well. But it was a really interesting thread that kind of just confirmed like there is this common theme of fear of rejection.
But also like, I'm not the problem, you're the problem.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Like that was the sense that I got, that there is, like we've been saying, the difference between femcel and incel, which we're going to get into, was that like incels really said like Stacey's, Chad's, like society's fucked, you're all the problem. And that's why I'm not getting laid.
Yeah.
But so let's talk about femcels.
So a femcel is like a woman or someone femme identifying who is involuntarily celibate. And again, same thing as the guys. It's sort of just like, I'm not successful in love or relationships. I want a partner. I want to have sex, but it's just not happening for me for some reason.
And what's really interesting is with femcels, like we've been saying, instead of blaming everyone else for the fact that they're not getting laid and not getting into relationships, they are blaming themselves, right? So a lot of the stuff that we read online said that girls and women are not socialized into believing that they have a right to men's bodies, and also because they are socialized into self-blaming more broadly. So femcels often feel like they are judged and rejected based on not meeting unrealistic beauty standards, leading them to believe that their chances of romantic or sexual relations are severely limited. And this has to do with them.
Yeah.
So when we were like reading a lot of the Reddit forums that had a lot of femcels in them, like a lot of the things that they were saying were basically just like, I've tried to get hotter. I've tried to change my hair. I've tried to wear more makeup. I've tried to change my outfits.
It must be me.
It must be me.
Yeah.
There's something inherently wrong with me.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense because like even what you just said there, like sort of being socialized into self-blaming more broadly. I read an article on a psychology website. Karen Wu is the author, and she wrote this piece about how femcels differ from incels. So on the whole, she says women show more internalizing disorders, for example, depression, anxiety, compared to men, whereas men show more externalizing disorders like substance abuse or impulsive disorders. From an early age, girls are taught to be kind to others, to care for their relationships, and to prioritize others' feelings over their own. And they're taught that they can be sad and turn their feelings inwards, but they cannot be angry at others. Meanwhile, boys are generally taught to achieve power and gain power even at the costs of others. They're allowed and even encouraged to fight, but they are told not to cry or verbalize sadness. So as a result, this socialization, women may feel sad instead of angry when sexually rejected, often blaming themselves, whereas men feel angry, blame others, and act out, sometimes harming others, which is obviously what we've been seeing where people take the incel thing and
kill people.
I was going to be like, be violent, but yeah, sure.
Go on killing sprees.
Go on killing sprees.
Even the journey of the beginning of Incel, which was created by Alana, to then having, you know, women and femmes have to create a whole new term to feel like they have something to describe what they're experiencing because they can't use incel anymore. And it's not boy sober because they're not purposely taking a break from dating relationships. They are genuinely wanting that but cannot get it. And now incels' reactions to the term femcel is they say they refuse to believe that it even exists.
Isn't that funny?
They've invalidated a term that was created by a woman in the first place.
Yeah, because they're in an incel's mind, they're literally like, by default, because you are a woman, you absolutely could get sex. You just need to lower your standards.
And guys were DMing us saying this, being like, I don't believe that femcels exist because women can have sex with whoever they want.
Right, yeah. So someone here DM'd us saying, I assume girls can get a root anytime that they like. Another person here saying, I guarantee you that incels have less opportunities than femcels. The average guy, which would be 2 to the most average women, are far less likely to have higher requirements than a female equivalent. I just find that so funny. And again, we spoke about this with Ryder Jack, the 80-20 rule, where guys constantly thought like women, all they want is like high value men with money, men who are charming, who are good looking, who are fit, and they'll never lower their standards. And we know that's just not true. Like we literally did the research on this. So Adrian Furnham, a professor of psychology at the Norwegian business school, wrote that studies showed that men rated physical attractiveness, health, and sexual desirability higher than women did, whereas women placed a higher value on traits like intelligence, emotional stability, and conscientiousness. So it's just bullshit.
And I think the difference is when guys say that's because guys or these incels might view sex through the lens of like, I'm owed sex, or like I have a right to women's bodies and therefore I have a right to sex. Whereas what we've been saying is that women don't perceive men in the same way, or femcels don't perceive men in the same way. So when they're saying I'm not having sex, they don't mean like I'm going to go have sex with a sex worker. Like I can have sex whatever I want. They mean like there is no one that I feel safe enough or connect with enough to have sex with. It's not like, oh yeah, of course, like if they wanted to, they could go and see a sex worker and have sex if they could afford it. But it's like, I think for a lot of femcels, because you and I were in a lot of the Reddits kind of like going through.
Oh, we trolled.
Yeah, like going through like why a lot of people are identifying as femcels. And it was like, it's the sex that they want to have is with someone that they feel safe with and connect with. So like, even thinking about that, it makes sense. It's like, yeah, sure, maybe a femcel could have sex with someone, but like it's more about the fact that in a normal dating sense, like they are not having sex in the way that like they perceive everyone else to be having sex.
Yes. And speaking of like the Reddits that we did troll through, it was actually kind of interesting to see. Like they actually had a really big femcel Reddit, but they actually got banned as well in the same way that the incels did. And that's because there's a lot of TERFs on there. There was like transphobic chat. Like it was not a good place. But there now are these kind of like trickle down little like smaller femcels, and they are pretty like popular. Like there's still stuff going on there, but definitely a different vibe from what the original femcels were. And we spent a little bit of time there looking. I mean, there was like a lot of memes, a lot of like anime girl memes with like text on it.
There was definitely some like pretty misandrous stuff, like a lot of
100.
femcels like hating men, like making jokes about being violent towards men.
Yeah, a lot of it as well was sort of just feeling down and depressed about like sort of societal views of like gender and beauty and feeling like they don't fit in. So there was a lot of that. But then, you know, there were still comments of people trying to like uplift each other and give each other like advice. And it really was like, honestly, it just does come across as a bit of a venting ground for people, and you know.
And I will say that like from like trolling through the webs and like looking at
the webs,
like all of the webs.
Okay.
Like in the incel pockets, like I've looked through, like it's a lot of anger and a lot of blame. But then for the femcels, there's a lot of people who are just trying to uplift each other, like you said, being like I saw a lot of women like telling each other, like, have you tried doing this? Or like, have you tried doing this? Or like, I'm sure you are really interesting, but like if you have social anxiety, like why don't you try that? And like just trying to uplift each other and give each other advice.
Well, that's the other thing that I sort of noticed, like investigating this femcel stuff. There are other subreddits that are sort of linked to femcels where they are encouraging each other or helping each other like maximize their attractiveness. And I'm not saying that this is a good thing, because I'm like, you shouldn't have to feel like that and whatever. But if you want to go and get advice and get some practical tips on it, if you feel really like, why am I not getting a partner? It's there. And it just feels way more active. Whereas like the incel culture felt way more passive. And like, I think they're much more resistant to that. Like, I don't think an incel would go to like a gym bro Reddit and be like, let me get some fitness tips and stuff like that, because they're constantly just like
putting the blame outward.
Totally. And they're just like really, really in their head and like down about this shit. But like, it seems like the femcel thing, it's like, I don't know. It could be like another thing of like societal pressure of just being like, update your looks, like get hotter, get fitter, like whatever. And it's like toxic anyway. But
I think as well, if you stripped away even just not even thinking about femcels, but just women in general, like that is like $1 billion market.
Yeah,
of just
exactly.
Like, here's how you can get a thigh gap. Oh, actually, now we've changed it to waist. And also, by the way, like we want the like cat eye, but now we actually don't want the cat eye. You know what I mean?
Oh,
so,
yeah,
like,
take out your BBL. Like, we're done with that.
It's the whole thing. All right, let's move on and talk about the fact that we asked you if you identified as a femcel, if there was like anyone who listens to the hookup or watches us or follows us, if this was something that you could relate to.
And I mean, like when we say that, we mean somebody who like base level wants a relationship, wants sex, and
Isn't
is
getting it.
not getting
Yeah.
it. And we don't, and like obviously we've spoken a lot about the cultural origins of these terms, and it's kind of sometimes you can be like, oh, I have an idea of what that person is. Take that away.
Yeah.
A femcel is just a woman or femme identifying person who wants to have a partner or sex and is not having it.
Exactly. And that's what we asked you. Is this something that you relate to or can identify with? And we got this message. Someone said, I would never have thought to label myself a femcel, but perhaps that is what I am. There is no one reason why. I feel as though I may have just missed opportunities because I was too focused on study or I gave off the wrong signals and pushed people away. And with dating, I feel like I'm going on the same kind of dates. They're either boring, no connection, narcissists who only ask you surface level questions, guys where you see the light leave their eyes when they realize how educated you are. Like, am I too picky? And inevitably you blame yourself, but the dating scene being what it is online makes it incredibly difficult to meet people because you just have to lose the energy to use the apps. I feel a piece of me die when I have to spend more than 5 minutes there. And it's not like you're meeting anyone in real life when you start to get older, as you have no time, and unless you join a club, even making new friends is difficult. And hearing someone say, your time will come or it will happen when you least expect it is tiring because it hasn't. I'm in my 30s, and if you want children, you feel this need to make a choice right now, as physically you might not have a choice in the end. And it's times like this, while you can bring a child into the world on your own, it's so difficult and much more ideal to have that partner. Ultimately, though, I would rather be a femcel than settle for some 5'10" guy out of desperation.
Whoa. Okay, that actually that sounds like they're ticking a lot of those boxes in a way, I guess.
Of being a femcel.
Obviously, like the term in itself is kind of fraught. And I totally would be like, if I was in this position, I wouldn't want to be calling myself that.
Well, a lot of people message us saying like, oh yeah, I completely relate to all of the things that you're talking about, but I would never use that term. I don't like the term.
Yeah. And we did get, as you said, a lot of DMs saying that. So someone here saying, not a femcel, but I am a disabled woman who's celibate, not by choice, and unhappily single. Within the disability and chronic illness community, there are a lot of unhappy single women. Women experience higher rates of this as men commonly will leave sick or disabled femmes. All genders face huge isolation, but there are some women who will actually date men with disabilities more than the other way around. Which, I think we've definitely noticed that doing this show for a couple of years.
Yeah.
We've done topics on this. That tracks.
Yeah. Someone here saying, babe, it's literally the autism. I have no idea how to give signals that I'm interested, and we end up in such poor communication, and I get upset and overwhelmed, but then also my Tinder is blowing up with guys who just want sex. But I don't know if they're going to focus on my pleasure. So if I don't think I'm going to come, why bother? This is what I was saying. It's like, sure, women and femmes can have sex with whoever they want, but it's like, why would they have like unsatisfying sex?
Another DM we got from someone, I want casual sex and I just can't find it. I don't know what's wrong with me. Small town things. Yeah, again, a lot of people who are in isolated places are celibate, not by choice. It's just like you got to put your radius to like 500K to find one person, and even then you might not even meet them. It's tough out there. Another person here is saying, when I was 10 kilos lighter, my apps were never dry. I noticed a massive change since gaining weight. I feel less worthy and much more insecure in sex now because of it. Another self-esteem sort of thing here. I haven't had sex in over 2 years. Every time I find myself close, I shut it down because I feel as if I'm not worthy enough for someone to sleep with. It comes down to my own sense of self rather than other people. Bam, nail, head. That's what we were talking about. Like, it's not about pushing it on other people in society. Women internalize all this self-hatred and depression and everything. It's sad.
And like the world tells you that you are only whole, right? Like there's so much pressure to find a partner. Like you'll find them, like don't worry, it'll happen when you least expect it, blah, blah, blah. And this was something that people really resonated with. Someone here said, I've been single for 13 years and it really starts to get to you after a while when you're not finding your person. It can be really hard being the single friend. I'm okay on my own, but it is something I would love to have one day. I wouldn't call myself a femcel, but it does make me wonder if there is something I'm missing for sure. I'm sometimes so lonely, it's physically painful. Although I'd rather be alone than with someone who treats me poorly or like a second option. I just find the dating word brutal and exhausting, but haven't met anyone in my regular social life. So I'm celibate by choice, but also not by choice. At least it feels like that anyway. I want casual sex and I just can't find it. I don't know what's wrong with me.
I just think that's such a good point, because it's like someone here saying, I'm celibate by choice, but also not by my choice. It feels like that anyway. that is like the nuance of this is so tricky. And also what this person was saying and feeling, like they said it was physically painful for them to feel alone. And I think that's what we really wanted to address in this episode, because we've done so much work on helping you and helping me as a single person as well be like, it's okay to be single. It's fine. Like, fill your own cup. And that's really, really great on paper. If you can even manifest that and outwardly express that and be happy with that yourself, amazing. But we never really touched on the sadness and the unhappiness and potentially even the shame or embarrassment, feeling like you can't find this person and that you're getting left behind in life. Because like we wanted those episodes to be positive and we wanted to focus on that. But, you know, in this, it does feel like a good space for us to actually address that and say, yeah, like fucking oath.
Yeah.
It is rough. It is hard. If you were really someone out there wanting a partner and wanting sex and connection and you're not getting it, it's really hard. And we saw this TikTok from this girl, Ryan Spencer, talking about it. And honestly, it really like tugged at my heartstrings for sure.
Everyone is so quick to say, stop doing this, stop thinking like this, stop telling me I'm wrong. Like, I genuinely just want love in my life so badly. I have built a beautiful life for myself. I'm happy with my life where I'm at, my job, I'm successful, I'm independent. I'm healthier than I've ever been. Truly, the only thing I'm missing in my life is someone to enjoy it with. And I'm so sick of waiting. Like, when is it going to be my turn? I just want love in my life so bad. Am I just supposed to be alone? Like, is that the message? That this beautiful life I've built for myself, like, it's just supposed to be me in it alone? All of my friends have their fiancés and their boyfriends and their husbands that they prioritize. Like, as far as I'm concerned, I've been left behind.
Oh my
I
God.
get emotional like hearing
I
her.
know.
Like she's like basically breaking down over this. Like, it's like, it makes me feel really some type of
It's
way.
fucking heartbreaking. And like, oh, it's just so complex. Like,
know.
it's so complex. And there's so much I wish I could say, but I just know that we don't have the time around like women outperforming men in so many spaces and in so many ways. And like that just, yeah, anyway.
And
But
trust me, we have talked about like you should feel like this genuine love for yourself and that should get you through. But again, society is like,
well, also,
no.
like she said, all her friends have partners and
Well,
husbands
yeah.
and they prioritize them. So at the same time, it's like you might have fulfilling relationships with your friends and family, but everyone else is prioritizing their partners. So therefore, like you're in a position where you could prioritize your friendships, but they won't prioritize you, which is a whole thing. But yeah, we have, like Peep said, spoken about this a lot, and research really, really does back this feeling that she's talking about, that like young people are staying single and not having as much sex. And it's rapidly dropping. We did a whole episode on the gender divide around this, but a lot of the conversations we have been having is around women feeling really empowered by that, right? Like
Yeah.
they are saying like, I am choosing to be boy sober. I'm choosing to be celibate. I am choosing to prioritize myself and heal and do the work and like put my friends first and my family and my passions and my career. But like we've been saying, there is a lot of shame around admitting that you do want a partner and you do want that connection.
You could even go as far and say like it's almost like unfashionable, untrendy, because everyone is in their empowerment 4B movement right now. It's like fuck men movement. Love men, by the way. Thanks for being here. But like there are a lot of women who are in that movement, in that bag, in that era. And so then to be actually like, but I actually really want a partner.
Well,
I really want someone to live my life with.
someone
It's
DM'd
like, yeah.
and said, I want romance and intimacy and connection in my life, but my friend dismissed it as not feminist.
Oh my God. That's not a friend, by the way. Or do you, you're laughing.
I'm like,
you're like,
well.
T. No, I don't think that's the right thing to say.
I'm like, was your friend me?
Yeah, no, but like that's not
No.
that's bad. But yeah, I mean, obviously we played this TikTok out just now, and it was also on our Instagram stories at Triple J the Hookup if you're not already following us. And we wanted to know if you related to this feeling. And of course, so many of you could relate to this. We had a DM from someone here saying, I have an amazing life with great friends, family, career, but also just seem to be single, even though I try and date. I'm gonna put myself out there. I'm a super bubbly and energetic person. I'm really social. I live in a small country town and I match with people in the city. If I really need sex, I can get it if I go to the city, but it compromises seeing my families and friends. I guess I've always wondered what's wrong with me and why I have not found love. And why do some men just want a one-night stand with me and not more? I'm pretty, I'm confident, little curvy, super outdoorsy.
Hello,
Hello?
Dream. Dream girl.
Fucking dreamboat over here. I mountain bike, hike, ski, scuba, water raft, surf heaps. I travel all the time. Sometimes I think my confidence and independence must turn them away. It's getting harder as I'm getting older, and I wonder if I'll just be alone forever and watch all my friends have kids.
See, this is what frustrates me is when people say like, or they open up and they're vulnerable and they're like, look, I'm really struggling. And then they're like, oh, well, just pick up a hobby. It's like, she just listed 5.
She has
What
more
do you
hobbies than
mean?
I've ever done in my
Join a
whole
group.
life.
I'm sure she's not water rafting on her own.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah. And it's like,
go to the city if you live in a country town. She is.
and then she's like, well, then I miss out on my family and friends. It's like sacrifices, the compromises. She's literally like, I'm doing everything I can to be the best version of myself. And she sounds like she loves herself. She's like, in a good way, like in a healthy way.
I wonder if, and I think it's something that we should maybe look into. So send us a message if you kind of agree with this. But when she said, I think my confidence and independence must turn them away, I just wonder if there's something in that. We also got a message from someone else who related to the video saying, I can relate to the video you shared of always being the single friend while watching everyone else pair up. Deeply wanting to be in a relationship and it just not happening, maybe by a lack of putting myself out there. Sorry, but again, always blaming themselves.
Classic
I
women.
understand the frustration and the longing. I definitely don't think I'm ugly or unlovable, but there has been a pattern of nearly getting into a relationship, but it never works out. And it does sometimes make me feel like I'm not enough or maybe never will be for someone, even though I try to remind myself that isn't the case and it does just take time. It's tricky because I don't crave sex without the intimacy connection aspect of a partner. And so there are long periods of being celibate, although not deliberately. I feel like the word femcel sounds very negative to describe that though, as if I feel rage towards men because of this. It's more of a feeling of loneliness than resentment or anger.
There you go. You know what? I totally understand like not wanting to use the term femcel. Like it has obviously really negative connotations. But another thing I want to say, the feeling of loneliness and then resentment or anger is so important. Like we're spending so much time talking about the male loneliness epidemic. And like we're getting all these DMs from you being like, I'm really lonely. Like I'm really struggling with this. And there is still an innate amount of pressure on women to just forge on and just like manage it and do like go on and with their life and not talk about it. So I'm glad that we're able to like read these out and like sort of share in that feeling
and I think what's different there is like with the male loneliness epidemic, like that is completely complex and a different thing to the loneliness that women feel, because just the way that like we have been brought up gendered wise, like women have been taught to be able to form really tight knit communities with their friendships and to be able to talk vulnerably and to open up about hardship and the things that they're going through in the way that men haven't been taught. But the difference also is that women have also been taught to prioritize romantic relationships as something that they like should aspire to in like all of the movies that we watch, like in everything that we consume. Like it is always, the pressure is a lot more put on for women to find that special someone, that significant other, that soulmate, that life partner. And I think that in itself is a whole conversation. And also just the fact that like there is a hierarchy of love. And like a lot of you have said, like you are really happy with your friends and you are so fulfilled in your life and you feel really complete. But it is the conversations that everyone is having around you with your friends and family who are saying like, oh, don't worry, you'll find them. Or like it'll happen to you one day, or seeing anyone special. Like we have this hierarchy of love and romantic love is at the top. And I think that is where the loneliness can sometimes come from, is when the world mirrors to you that what you are.
Your
like,
value, your worth.
Well, yeah, like also like what you are experiencing isn't enough.
Yeah.
On your own.
Yeah. And then the tricky thing with this is that we're sort of saying to you, like, it's okay to feel like, it's like, you shouldn't feel like this because like we shouldn't be having this like hierarchy of relationship. And it sucks because like, man, even being single and like cooking for myself and having to buy food for myself and that hierarchy of being like, damn, as a single person, I'm spending so much more money and like, but also the value of me is lesser because I don't have this person with me and I don't have the opportunity to create life and a family.
Yeah.
But
it's
like
so huge.
but with this, we're also trying to say to you, like, that shouldn't exist, but also it's so fair if you want that at the same time. It's really tricky.
We got this DM that I think is a good place to kind of wrap up. They said, I stopped trying to find it because it was stressful and then I got really unwell for a few years. I'm open to it, but I welcome all forms of love in my life, as romantic love is just one of the ways that you can be loved.
This has been such an interesting episode to like digest with you and like research and hear all of your DMs. We don't necessarily have like the answers for you on this. It's just good to like talk about it. And if you want to leave a comment below, if you're watching on YouTube, please do. And if you want to follow us at Triple J The Hookup, that's where you can get in on these conversations. Send us DMs, send us voice memos, any dating trends.
Yeah, if there's something else that you've noticed and you want us to investigate, like let us know. Like we'll unpack and do a whole episode for you.
Yeah. Obviously this one started from this like real chronic online place, which I was loving. I was in the Reddit. I was in the Reddit
I was like, let's get into the
threads.
psychology of it, but why?
I was like, I want to stay in these Reddit threads. Love it. Anyway, thanks so much for listening.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.